US President Donald Trump calls the release of a controversial memo vindication, but lawmakers, even in Mr. Trump's own party, openly disagree. Joining me now to talk more about this is Peter Mathews, a political analyst and professor of political science at Cyprus College. Thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Rosemary.
So President Trump says the recently released Nunes Memo totally vindicates him on the Russia probe, but not all Republicans agree with him on that point. Trey Gowdy says it has no impact on the Russia probe, and he thinks Mueller's investigation should continue unimpeded. So what's Mr. Trump talking about, and what was achieved by releasing this memo?
I think that he's trying to use false bravado to act like nothing is, that he's been cleared, but obviously he's not been cleared. The investigation is going to be going on systematically by Bob Mueller and others. And releasing the memo was to attempt to distract from Bob Mueller's investigation and also actually impinge the integrity of the investigation, because it says the memo, the Republican memo, the Nunes Memo, says that the FBI and Mueller and them used the wrong illegal activity in terms of the FISA Court surveillance request. They're trying to say that the FBI was corrupt, it was anti-Trump, and that's basically made up, mostly. You could see that if it weren't made up, then they would allow the Democratic memo, which is coming up with the House Ranking Intelligence Committee member, Adam Schiff, had another member from the Democratic side. That memo should have been released the same time the Republican memo was released if there was no problem, untoward situation.
Right, okay, and we will come back to that point, but I do want to talk about Republican Senator John McCain. He blasted his Republican colleagues for releasing the Nunes Memo, saying this, and I am quoting him directly: "If we continue to undermine our own rule of law, we are doing Putin's job for him." And Senator McCain says he wants to see the Mueller investigation proceed unimpeded. How divisive could this issue prove to be for the Republican Party, and will others be emboldened to stand up to the president on this issue, do you think?
Someone has to stand up, including Republicans, because this issue is much more than the Republican Party. It's divisive with the United States of America. It can divide people on the constitutional question. There'll be a constitutional crisis, because if one faction says one thing and the other one says the other, as opposed to allowing the FBI, the Mueller investigation, the special prosecutor, to actually go out and look for the information directly without being interfered with by the executive branch, by the president, then you've lost the rule of law. There's no integrity or accountability and legitimacy on the part of the FBI, and it looks like the Republican leadership has tried to impinge the FBI's integrity, which is very dangerous for the whole country and for the rule of law principle, and it could come completely apart.
Right, and you touched on this point just a couple of minutes ago. The House Intelligence Committee will consider whether to declassify that Democratic memo that essentially rebuts the Nunes memo. How likely is it, though, that they will vote to declassify it? And if they do, will the White House give the okay to release it? Because it would need to get the last word on this, wouldn't it? That's
right. That's the next step. If the Intelligence Committee votes to actually release it, the White House has 5 days to either accept the release or to rebut it, and actually to stop the release. And I'm not sure that Trump will let that go through, because he doesn't want the Democratic memo to come through or come out of the public, because that would balance out the picture far more. Because don't forget, these are just memos on the actual underlying intelligence. They're not detailed intelligence. They're just memos, and they're picked, and people are picking and choosing, especially the Republican side. So with the Democratic side rebutting it with more facts, I think that would weaken Trump's argument and put the focus once more on Mueller's investigation of the possible obstruction of justice charges, which is very serious.
Right, and you don't think he'll want to see that happen. So what impact has the release of this Nunes memo had on the Mueller Russia probe so far? Does it discredit it in any way? And how likely is it that Mr. Trump will push to get rid of Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein or Special Counsel Robert Mueller, or perhaps both?
I think it has had some impact for sure, because it's thrown in questions, and people are neutral about this whole issue and hadn't known much about it. Now they think, well, you know what, there's another side of the question, and that maybe Mueller is, and so is the FBI, are corrupted. So this can sway a certain amount of the population. Although 49%, a Washington Post ABC poll showed that 49% of Americans believe that President Trump did act to interfere in the Russia investigation. which is equivalent to obstruction of justice. Half the country believed that before this incident. The other thing is, I'm not sure that this would actually go through because, you know, it's a process of rule of law. And even if it weakens Mueller's investigation a bit, he's still going to go full-fledged ahead. Plus, Mr. Mueller has a lot of information, a lot of documentation, and he's got witnesses. He's got people such as Michael Flynn, who has testified to him, who's pled guilty. He's got Paul Manafort. He's got so many people on the inside. Now Hope Hicks is being drawn in, and he's going to be questioning her. In fact, maybe he already has questioned her in detail about what she knew, and she's been at the president's side for many, many, many years. She could have actually spilled the beans as well.
Yeah, and no matter all of these things going on, we see Robert Mueller continuing on his path with this investigation. Peter Mathews, thank you so much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Rosemary.